So these, in the process of nailing the shear plank on, we're using this is a traditional Japanese boat nail. So it's made of flat steel, it's handmade, hand forged, has a slight taper in this dimension and really no taper in that dimension, made of flat stock. And then it has this nice wide head that grabs the plank and holds it in place. And what we're doing is we are sending a nail through our side plank, and we want it to go in through the middle of our first plank. Actually, I'm holding that upside down. Head goes up. And I hope, dear viewer, you appreciate that that's a wee bit difficult. And so obviously the danger here is you send the nail out of the plank or into the boat. But the next thing I want to show you is the process we use to accurately get that nail in there. And by the way, this is 1 sun thick. We're working in the traditional measuring system, which is shaku, and that's about 1 1/8 inches or 30 millimeters. So that should cover most viewers' measurement scales. So as I mentioned, the challenge here is we're sending a nail through this upper plank, and it's going to go into the edge of the bottom plank, which is just over 1 inch wide. And easy to make a mistake there. So what boat builders use are patterns like this. So this pattern, these are 2 parallel edges and the cutout. And the 2 parallel edges are offset by 5 bu, or half a sun, which is the thickness of the planking. So in other words, when I hold this against the boat and bring that up, that is in line with the center of the plank below it, the top of this pattern. Okay? The next tool we're using is this. This is called the tsuba nomi. Nomi means chisel. Tsuba means hilt, the sword hilt. And this is really a boat builder's tool. Temple carpenters may have one of these in their toolbox, but a boat builder has a full set of these because the nail is flat steel. You can't make a hole for this nail with a drill. You have to have this flat chisel to make that hole. So a boat builder in his tool chest or their tool chest would have a complete set of these for every size nail that they use. And so a boat builder, like my teachers, would hold this up, get the idea of that location, and then proceeds to start chiseling that hole. And as they progressed down the boat, they might insert something. One of my teachers would use a chopstick, insert that, and that would help them see that angle. Though that angle is slowly changing over the length of the boat. But that would be kind of a quick sighting of the angle. And you would drive that chisel in, go right through the center of the bottom plank, and you'd have your nail hole ready for nailing. Again, I hope everybody appreciates how difficult this is. But you know, one of the things to understand about traditional boat building in Japan in the 20th century was the enormous output. You know, I've talked to boat builders who said they or their fathers built well over 1,000 boats. So they would have done tens of thousands of these nails. And they get good at it and can do it almost intuitively. I teach Japanese boat building workshops in America, and I've taught overseas. I've taught in Australia recently, and I had to come up with a kind of a workaround for this nailing thing. This would just be too challenging for students, first-timers. And so what I did was I took that pattern idea and I essentially made a jig. So this is the same thing, But at the half-sun offset, I've got a hole with a metal sleeve. And so what I can do is come to the boat, and I've got to put my glasses on. I can come to the boat, I hold that flat underneath, and I bring this down to the shear plank. I've got a little pin to help lock it. So that's flat to the bottom, and now I basically drill a guide hole. And now with that guide hole, now it's very easy. You really can just sort of lightly hold the Subanomi, and it'll chase right down that hole. And it's relatively foolproof. But first, I've got to chisel a mortise for the nail head to enter. And I'm looking for my little invention, which I had right here. Here it is. I took a nail and I cut the shaft off it. And now I insert this. Trace the shape, the outline. This is my great contribution to Japanese boat building. And I can start to chisel the mortise. So the head is at a right angle, so I need to create this right angle based pocket for that nail head to wind up in. So bevel to the inside, hold that at the angle. I can sight on this nail. So bevel to the inside, and I cut down as far as the base of the hole. To the other side, line up the angle, cut down. Then come up to the top. Make a cut, and now go 90 degrees to that. That's it. And there's the mortise, ready for the nail head. You'll notice that I blocked up the boat. This work, and especially the nailing, can force the plank down. And we've got a mark on all our molds where our top edge of plank is. We don't want to see that change. We don't want to see that drop. One little thing I do to ease it is come in with a chisel, come in with a drill, sorry, and just widen that a bit. We want the nail to pass easily through this plank, and where we want it, to really have friction is in the plank below. So we're looking for a generous hole where the nail initially passes through the first plank. So now I take the Subanomi, and it's really important to oil it up. Just use regular cooking oil. And now this will chase. I hold it flat, the blade's flat, the same attitude as the nail, and just we don't do anything really hard or fast, because obviously there's a real risk of splitting the plank, edge nailing like this. Okay, and now the tsuba, the hilt, here's the reason for it. It's the only way to get the chisel out. So we've chiseled the hole, and I'm going to take the nail, and if you can pivot down to the floor, I'm going to give it a little back bend. Just put that little bit of back bend on it, and now we set it. And you might think, boy, you know, that really sets a long way. But there's a couple reasons for that. One is these nails are quite soft steel. They really won't drive through wood. They really need that perfectly sized hole to set up in. And otherwise they'll bend, and that's a mess, and you can't pull them out. And the other thing to remember, this is a taper. So every millimeter that goes in, it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, okay? So dropping in that much is not a mistake, okay? Prevents it from bending, and don't worry, it's getting tight. The other thing to remember too is, unlike a drill, if you drill a hole for a conventional Western wire nail, you're removing wood. This process doesn't remove any wood. We've just pushed the wood fibers aside. You know, I just drive the chisel in and I knock it back out. And that's part of the holding power of this technology. And now, okay, so you also want to drive very slowly. I'm going to do a little adjusting. Then the nail's set. And just to a point where it starts to crush in the cedar. And that's it. We're good on the outside, no nail visible on the inside, and that's the process. Any questions, audience?